All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another coffee Q&A here on the OnoCoffee channel. I'm Jay, your host, and we're here most Monday through Fridays, most weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, talking about coffee, making coffee, and answering questions you might have about coffee. So if you have questions about coffee, let me know in the comments here or down here if you're watching, especially on the replay. And how's it going? Everything's good? So today I've got this, we're going back to the Americano. We're going to have a question about something called Calpico soda. And Calpico soda is something that comes from Japan. Very popular. Actually, this is something I've actually never had before. I forgot why exactly I started looking at this Calpico, because there was something that I saw on the internet, something to do with syrups. I think it had to do with kakigori, that I saw somewhere, and I thought, okay, I better go taste this because I want to know what that tastes like. And then by the time I got down to Maruichi, the Rockville-based Japanese market, I went and bought all these Calpicos, and then I was like, well, I don't remember why I bought them. I have to go look through I save a lot of stuff in Instagram, so I probably saw it there and I have to do it. How's everyone doing? Dylan, good morning to you. Bryant, good morning, Mom. How are you doing? Peter, how are you doing too? All right, so let's see what this Calpico is all about. I need a glass. Oh, let's. If we're going to be tasting Calpico, we should do it properly, right? What do you think? All right, so we got our little Riedel tasting glass here. Very nice Riedel and Calpico. This one is actually made, because it's actually in this can, I'm going to presume it's made here, or at least packaged here. So it contains milk and soy, carbonated water, sugar, nut. There's some natural artificial flavors. Asahi Beverages in Torrance, California. I don't know if that means that it's made there or product of Japan. So it is made in Japan. And what's that soon though, man? We're gonna open it up. So a little bit milky. We don't want to use a lot of it. We just want a little bit milky. Right. If you're not familiar with Calpico, that's all right. Mabuhay to you, Keone. Good to see you. Ooh, kind of fruity, citrusy. Kind of very pleasant on the nose. Oh yeah, like a citrusy, lightly milky. Oh, that's quite nice, actually. No wonder people love this thing. And I can see using this as a component, or at least the more concentrated Calpico. There's several different versions. Ooh, I've got a lot of other bottles that I'm going to be drinking soon. What was I saying? This, so I can see how this you could add it with other fruits and then make it as a kakigori syrup or a shaved ice snowball syrup. All right, well, let's see if it works. All right, let's see if it works. We've got our espresso machine set up here. Of course, the La Valentina E61. And then the ever standard and bulletproof Mazzer Major Auto. This has the auto dosing feature. And actually, I was just watching a video today from this place. Was it Viviano in Italy, where they have the little tiny window for the little wine window, and evidently they also do affogatos. And I really like the way they do the affogato. They'll take like their cappuccino style cup, put and they'll use a spade paddle for gelato scooping, a spade instead of a scoop, right? You've seen, and they'll put a little bit at the bottom, and then they'll work their way around. So you kind of have this 4 sloshes here, and you have a little tiny cup of pistachio gelato. Then they rim it with pistachios, pull and they actually use a single shot using the old school method. they put a single shot in it and then make the affogato that way. It looks really nice. I really like it. And what I mean by that, they have the portafilter that has the single spout, not the double like we use here. They have the one that has the single spout, and they have the single shot basket because it has that two-stage shape. They're using a dosing grinder and one click, a little touching. It's like one of the most perfect examples of old school Italian espresso preparation that I've seen in a while. So kind of fun, kind of strange, you know, because compared to what we're doing in the rest of the world, right? But it looks great. It looks great. Okay, so like I was saying, like in case you might be wondering, the dosing hoppers, and I know most of you guys are using non-dosing hoppers, you know, dose or less. These dosing hoppers were designed for production cafes where they would actually, an auto feature would actually grind the coffee and fill it up. And then inside here, I know it's hard to see, but there's actually these like star patterns. Let me see if I can angle it a little bit so you can kind of see that star pattern there, right? Those star patterns represent little channels or little pockets, and the coffee would fall into that pocket. And depending on the depth that you adjusted, there's a piece that you could adjust the depth of it, you would be able to put 7 grams of coffee in one of those things. So that if you wanted a single shot and it was full enough, 1 click. If you want double shot, 14 grams, 2 clicks. Now, of course, it's not to the level of precision that we're using in modern times, as far as like, you know, weighing out your dose exactly to the 10th of a gram. But it works fairly well. Like, you know, it's pretty darn good. Keone says that Calpico is better than Pocari Sweat, in my opinion. You know, I have not had Pocari Sweat since my first trip to Japan in 1990. And I know it's super popular. It was super popular then. It's super popular now. But I just remember when I was drinking the Pocari Sweat in Japan back then, I was like, oh my gosh, what? It's like, yeah, I just didn't like it. I don't know. I just remember it was really kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so bizarre. Like this, I think is really, really tasty. But I do have a Pocari Sweat that I picked up for the Chemic connoisseurs. I'm going to have to, you know, it has been 34 years since is that right? Yeah, 34 years since I've tried it. So I have to go back again, and I can't hate on it forever, right? Okay, so let's go and make a little bit of espresso to make sure that we're okay with our shots. Now, you know how I am. I tend not to make coffee too much when I'm not doing the show. So I have not made espresso, or actually, I have not made espresso here. I made a lot of espresso last week while doing the training. I've not made an espresso here since we did the last episode where we talked about espresso. So just going to flush the machine. I've been letting it run for the last hour or so, just to make sure we get through all of this kind of sputteriness. Okay, that's good. And we've got a little bit of residual grounds in here, so I'm going to take our top, grind through what's in the collar. Can you see? Oh, you can't really see the collar. Let me pull this forward so that it's a little more in view. There we go. So there's always going to be coffee caught somewhere in your grinding system, and if you've let it sit for a little while, you want to, or like a long while, you want to grind through that. Probably that's okay. And then now we can grind fresh. I've got an E or S60, is it right? E or S65, or maybe it's an E65S, the larger cousin to the Malkonig X54. I have that coming to the restaurant today. So after we finish today's live stream, that's where I have to go, bring them some coffee, and help them unpack and set up their new grinder. There's also, if you guys are familiar with the Malconic line, there's also an E80. I opted not to go for that one for those guys because it's a considerable more expense, but also I just want to make sure that we go to they have the volume for it. Otherwise, if you don't have the crazy volume for the E80, then you may not. I feel like it's a little bit of waste. So I want to try to save them a little bit of cash. There we go. There's our espresso. Let's come over here. Oh, we could slide. Yeah, I knew we could zoom in more. Anton Mumlodin, how are you, man? Good to see. What machine is that? This is the La Valentina E61. It is actually 20. I bought it in 2002, so it's 22 years old now. And actually, it's still being sold. It's actually still being sold. It's being sold. It's still being sold on First Line Equipment. I think sells this, and still in the same configuration. Like Italians, they don't really change. Everything's still the same. But it's a solid machine. Like if presuming they're making it the same way they did 22 years ago, it should be very solid. Like it's 22 years old. So, right, here we go. Let's have a look here. So the shot looks all right. You see a little bit of the blonding here. So we could have stopped earlier, probably let it run a little bit too long. It looks like it's starting to get thin because I'm talking it too much. So let's have a taste. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. A little bit bitter. Good body. Good body. I think that could be nice. Michael, good morning to you as well. And Anton says, nice new gear, always excited. I would like to get that. I was thinking I would like to get the Meticulous. But I think they're mired in like, I think it was Keone said that they were, or someone said they were mired in legal battles with the guy that has the Duval, and evidently the Duval guy is just like a patent monger, or that this is what they said on Reddit. I didn't say that. And I've seen Duval's machine, like he's shown at the SCA conferences a couple times, but they say he's not doing anything, so he's just there to try to collect money and. I guess he has to make a machine and show it that he's going to release it so that he can defend his patents. So Kenny asks, do you need to purchase a maintenance agreement for your espresso machines or grinders for your shop? Well, I do not. I do not, because and here's the difficult scenario is that Baltimore, where I live, Baltimore is a terrible place for espresso machine technicians. There's one guy. There's one out of all the people that come out of the woodwork for espresso machine repair, coffee machine repair. There's only one person that has demonstrated competency, and I know that sounds kind of like, well, I'm like meh, but really, he's actually really good. He's really good, responsive, not cheap, of course, but he does the work, knows what fixes everything, gets it done. Everybody else has proven themselves to be completely unreliable, unknowledgeable, and just a hack at what they're doing. It's really terrible. It's really, really terrible. Like, I'm shocked at the level of incompetence and braggadocio amongst machine technicians here. Now, there are some technicians in the country that are very good. Marty Rowe in Kansas City, Missouri, excellent. Like, it's to the point where I would think that it would probably be better to ship your espresso machine, and I do mean like a 3-group La Marzocco, like ship it to Kansas City, have Marty fix it, ship it back. It's going to cost you a lot of money in shipping, but it will save you so much more in time, headache, frustration, incompetence, and just shoddy workmanship. That's how bad it is. And so when you ask about, machine maintenance, Ideally, yeah. If you have a shop, I would say, yeah, have somebody come in and do a maintenance agreement so that you don't have to worry about it as an operator. But there's only one person that I've come to believe that I would trust with that, because everybody else is just terrible. So that's the other part. But like, yes, it's good to have a maintenance agreement with someone. So then when someone's going to come in on a regular basis, replace your gaskets, check all your valves, check all of the safety valves, right? Because if your safety valve fails and it fails in a way that doesn't blow off the heat or the steam, that steam's going to get relieved somehow. I mean, I remember seeing this one article about a espresso machine at a Tesco in the United Kingdom that overnight, luckily, it blew up because the pressure relief valve, the pressure check valve, failed closed. So it reached a point of like the boiler just kept heating and heating and heating. The valve didn't work and it exploded, blew out the glass in the front of the shop. So it was pretty crazy. So yes, I do think that maintenance agreements can be really great if you have a great technician that you can rely upon, that is knowledgeable, that is trustworthy, that is, nothing short of excellent. Nothing short of excellent. That's the caveat to that. That's the caveat. Otherwise, you might as well do it yourself. And when I started out in the business in 2002, there really was nothing here. Not nothing, but I was the very first in Baltimore to do the kind of coffee that we're doing. And so, and I was also the only one that wanted to have that had La Marzocco. So by having some of the equipment that we chose and doing what we're doing at that time, there was nothing. So we really had to kind of bootstrap it in the fact that like all maintenance had to come from us or me in that respect, right? So I had to learn how to fix the machine so I can tear down the machine completely and then rebuild it. And I learned that because I did it. I've done it a few times since. And so, yes, maintenance agreements are good. So if you are thinking about opening your own shop and you want to have machines, find a great person first. And then that's when the maintenance agreement is worth it. Like I had one guy that was like, this one guy, I have a La Marzocco Linea 4 group. I got it from many years ago, back in 2004, 2005. The company called TagX, this big auction company, had secured all of the La Marzocco all the La Marzocco Lineas that came from Starbucks and grinders. Like this Mazda Major was actually a former Starbucks grinder, right? And I bought it for a song, and I bought the 4 group for a song. And hey, one thing about this, you don't have to do much like this. I cleaned it up, made it look nice. That's really it. Replace the burrs. There's nothing to do for battle tanks. And if it stops working, you can bludgeon the person that's, invading your home if you can lift it. But I had this 4 group that I wanted someone to check out, and this guy came in and he took the whole thing apart and then never came back. And I haven't taken the time to fix it because in the very early generations of La Marzoccos, the saturated group head and the boiler were separate. Now they're all welded together, but back then they were separate, right? So the what do you call it? The boiler was stainless, and the group head was chrome plated brass, right? For that way. But in order to mate them, there were holes. There was a big hole for the saturated group head. Then there were like 6 holes in the boiler. And then you had this plate, this kind of cagey looking plate that had the threaded. You had to put that in the boiler, put it up against that, put the gasket on, and then put the group head, and then put the bolts in. And if you didn't have everything lined up perfectly, man, it's a real pain in the butt. And I just really haven't. It's been years. It's sitting in storage. I just haven't had the chance to do it. And so, like for example, so you're asking, do I have backup machines? Yeah, at one point I had 3 machines, a 2, 3, and 4 group La Marzocco. For the 3 group was my first one, my baby, right? I did a lot of modifications on it. One day I get a problem, and so I have this technician come down, and he takes it away to go fix it. Sometimes I'll call a technician if I'm away, right? I'm away out of the country. This guy comes back, he says, "Oh," and then months later, it takes him months to look into it. This is how ridiculous it is. Months later, he's like, "Hey, here's your bill." And it's some ridiculous amount, like $5,000 or whatever. And I'm like, what am I for what? If it's a heating element, replace the heating element. It doesn't cost that much. And he said, well, I had to do all this. And I was like, you know what, dude? I was so pissed off. I was like, F it. Keep the damn machine. It's like I'm also buy another one at $5,000 in repairs, right? So I have two. I have a 2 group that's actually beat to hell. It really needs to be rebuilt. I mean, it works. It works perfectly fine. But here's the thing about the old school lineas that I really liked is that, and this is a machine that I rebuilt at least twice. 2 group La Marzocco linea, not with the very, very old school boilers, but the boilers after the cage version, which everybody hated, they came out with a version where it had the not the nuts, but the threaded parts welded into it. Okay, that sucked, but better. Then the next generation, they came out with one where you put it on, we put the gasket, put it on, there was already threads in it, and then you just bolted it in. And that was a little bit easier to work on. That's the generation of my machine, my 2 group. The 4 group was the earlier generations. The 3 group was that same generation as well. The new generation, everything comes with a factory. Everything's stainless now, and it's all welded together. It's much easier. You just drop the whole thing, you're done. But that one needs to be. But the thing about saying, like, the lineas are really great because this is a machine we're pounding on daily, and it's got leaks. It really should not be operated. But it still works, and it's like the thing never dies. Like, it just doesn't die. There's no real. The electronics are the simple brain that are really controlling just kind of like the electronic triggering or the electric on and off and whatever. Not terribly complex. The new versions are all much more complex now, and I'm sure they're fine. But the old ones, I mean, like, there's steam happening everywhere. Steam is leaking out. Like, after a while, I realized that on the sight glass, so on the Marzocco sight glass, there's a sight glass in the front panel that has a bleed screw beneath it. And so when you want to drain the boiler, you take the screw out, and the water comes out. You drain the boiler, you can move it. Well, it's really under pressure, right? So if you take the screw out, or I've never done this, but everybody says not to do this. If you have the machine pressurized, right, you bleed off the steam groups to release the pressure in the boiler after shutting off the machine. So you can open this, you can take this screw off. They say that if you take this screw off while it's pressurized, it will shoot across the room or shoot out of it when you get to that point and spray you with hot boiling water. So not a fun event. The last time I was servicing it, I was taking off. I noticed I put the Allen key in the thing, in the nut, and I was like, in the bolt, and it was kind of wobbly. This thing was like had rusted out or whatever, or corroded to the point where but it never flew out. I was like, that's kind of crazy. We need to replace this whole sight glass now. So I need to rebuild it. Kelly says maybe just a good reason to get a couple of flare. Yeah. I mean, flare 58s are good. It's always a question though, like, part of it, I think, is a question of like, how good are your baristas, right? Like, and how adaptive are the baristas that you have? Some people are just not adaptive, and you guys all know that. You guys all know people that are very adaptive, that will just roll with the flow and like figure it out. And then there's people that just don't know how to do that. If you have baristas that don't know how to do that, then that becomes a little more difficult because then it's more of a battle, right? If you have a problem and you need to change something in midstream. So hopefully you find people that are much more adaptive. All right, let's go and do this. We're going to make our Calpico Cano, huh? All right, let's pour some in here. I think our shots are looking fairly good. We're going to fill it up to, I'm going to fill it to there. Right now, you may be wondering, like, well, you know, in America, we use at least 12-ounce Americanos. Why not make it bigger? You got a whole 12-ounce can. I like the concentration of flavors for these kind of things. I like it to be something that's going to be a little more interesting, right? And I like the color, right? The color, I think it'll be interesting to see. I think visually, it'll be very interesting. All right, let's look here. Knock that out, and let's rinse it out. Let's rinse it out. We'll rinse it out. Let that. I just like to set it up here whenever I rinse out the portafilter. Just set it here so it gives a moment for any water that has flowed through the basket into the lower part of the portafilter to flow out. Because otherwise, like I said before, you know, you start moving it around and you're going to have, you know, water everywhere, drips everywhere. Then you have to clean, and then that cleaning, that extra cleaning, means it's going to take a little more time for you to, you know, move on. And in a commercial setting with commercial baristas, those extra seconds can, you know, make a big difference over, you know, let's say in the course of an hour or 2 hours. If you're stopping a lot to do that, then you're not working as efficiently as you could. And then, like, let's say you're not working as efficiently and a line has formed, and then then suddenly you start to feel that you're falling into the weeds, and you're feeling the pressure. Actually, that is a little bit more could be distributed there. Oh, that feels a little bit full. Oh, that was a terrible one. Once in a while, that happens. All right, now here's where you make a mistake. Now, for most of you guys, if you're at home, this may not necessarily be, but this is also something to consider for the home user. Like, there it is. I had a couple drips, so it took me a little bit longer. I pulled the shot. I had a little bit of a change here where I wanted to readjust, and then I went to flick it out, and the whole puck came out. So that has caused a major interruption in the flow of my work, which if there's more people waiting, that means that they're waiting longer. And if you have a line, the longer you make people wait, the more impatient they become and the more pressure you feel. And so at this point, you feel like, oh my gosh, I got to hurry up. I got to speed up to get going. Now, here's where we try to train our baristas to do the opposite. You start to fall into the weeds. Like, I would say this is just falling into the weeds a little bit, and I want to go faster, but now it's time to actually take a moment, regroup, and then go slower. Be more deliberate in the actions and what you're doing. That way you can compensate. It feels very unintuitive in that you're like, oh, I need to go faster, but by being slower, you know, it feels like, well, obviously slower is not faster, right? So, but the thing is that you're by going slower, by being more deliberate, by taking a moment to refocus, you can then start to work through the issue without, like, because the faster you go, if you tend to go faster, you tend to go beyond your comfort speed, the speed at which you're working most efficient. And then you start to make more mistakes, which then compound and become much worse. Your anxiety increases, your attitude degrades, everything goes pear-shaped. So that's what I was telling the baristas when we were training them last week, is that, you know, if there's an issue that you're falling behind, just take your time, go back a little bit less, and regroup. Let's see, not that time I didn't lose it. Not that bad. This is why I don't like white countertops. I love the idea of marble. This would just make me upset. Okay, so we're ready. We're gonna go in and start the brew. Here comes the Calpico. Oh, I should have taken that out. Ha ha. Oh no, that was a terrible shot. Okay, that looks terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Look at that. What is that about? All that preparation for nothing. Look at that. See, this is the problem with carbonation and espresso. This just looks, to me, this looks ugly. Like I'm not liking that, but I'm liking this. I'm liking this layer. That's not bad. All right, time for a little bit of a, maybe just a little beauty shot here. And I did spill a little bit on the side of the cup. Let me go down here a little bit. This gives, I think that's a more interesting, more imposing. All right, so that's, okay, it doesn't look that bad. It looked terrible. Coming out, it looked kind of light, loose. But look at the separation. Ah, see, this is what I like. This is, I like there to be some kind of visual, I think that's visually interesting. Right, so we've got the Calpico, and it's mixing with the coffee, but the coffee is floating on top in layers. Now you can see there is some mixture here down in the white parts. That's not fully white. You know what? It reminds me of, it's kind of like the Mirinda that we did last time. Now, it's terribly ugly. Look at that. That's just ugly. Like, who wants to, you see, if I serve you this, who really wants to drink that? So let's see about taking this off. So let's scoop that off because, God, that is just ugly. But the problem is if I scoop that off, it looks, well, let's have it. It looks like, that doesn't look any better. That looks worse. Look at that. It's got all that crud on the side. A lot of the bitterness is floating on the foam. Not bad. I mean, this is a good argument. Like that kind of ugly foaminess. It's a good argument to put this in a paper cup with a lid. Flavor-wise, it's actually kind of nice. Again, we've got that like thermal layering where it's warmer with the espresso, and then as the Calpico comes underneath, you get that cold. I don't know if I mentioned this last week or something. I saw a video from Chris Young. Chris Young is one of the guys that does modernist cuisine. He worked for Heston Blumenthal. He has a video about hot and cold coffee, which I thought was really interesting. This is that experience. Not exactly, but the way that the Calpico is layering and keeping the espresso afloat is kind of that experience. It's not very dramatic. It's not extreme. Like it's not super hot and super cold, but it is hotter and colder. So the sensation that's coming into my mouth is on the top of the roof of my mouth. I'm getting this warm espresso Calpico liquid. On the tongue, it's cool, chilly Calpico. That's actually kind of interesting. More reasons not to stir the drink. Now, I don't know. What do you guys think? Can you live with the foamy look? Like, would that be? I think it looks ugly. Michael says that being adaptive creates ingenuity and great for keeping from boredom. Absolutely, absolutely. Dana's with us. What's up, the idea? How are you? Oh, that is very interesting. Oh, okay. Now that I think about it, I'm going to share you guys with something I just received yesterday in the mail from one of my coffee suppliers. So as you know, I do a bit of sourcing from farmers, producers in their own countries, in the different countries. But, you always have to have relations with importers. And I do have a good relationship with an importer called Genuine Origin. And so I called them up and I said, hey, I didn't call them up, but there's a website. You go to the website, you order coffees. And I wanted to get some samples because there were some coffees that I thought were kind of interesting, but I wanted to try them. So this is what we got. So I thought I'd share with you what we got. This one is a Costa Rica Jaguar Honey. Jaguar Honey, I think it's one of those, is it a co-ferment? I don't know, but it looked kind of interesting. Jaguar Honey. And so you can kind of see it there. He did not have relations with that one. And then what is this one? This is, here's another one. So that's the honey. This is a honey processed coffee. And if you're not too familiar with honey processing, because I wasn't sure. So honey processing is basically they depulp the coffee. So they separate the coffee from the husk. And then many years ago, when you just did that, and then you dried the coffee that's covered in the mucilage, if you just dried it like that, it used to be called pulp natural. Now it's called red or black honey, depending on where you are. And so you've got, I've heard black, red, yellow. Is there orange? Black, red, yellow, white. And then there's washed, right? And these are degrees of mucilage that's covering the bean. This one is unspecified as to what kind of honey. It just says Jaguar Honey. Maybe Jaguar. I thought Jaguar was the name. Maybe the Jaguar is the name of the farm. I thought that was the name of the farm. Honey process. So it's some kind of honey. It doesn't really say what kind of honey it is. Is this sealed? No, it's not that sealed. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. Maybe we can see. Kind of a sweet smell to it, lightly fruity. But the honey processing, that's essentially it. You leave mucilage on the coffee beans and then you dry it. And then depending on the version of honey, could be a little bit or a lot of mucilage. Then we've got also from the Jaguar. Okay, the Jaguar is definitely the farm. This is their anaerobic honey. So what I believe that they're doing here is that they are taking the honey, this coffee, and then instead of just drying it straight up, they're also doing the processing in probably some kind of bladder or barrel or some kind of containment where they have reduced the amount of oxygen. It says, we talk a lot about anaerobic. I don't believe, even in the coffee that I'm having produced that's anaerobic, I really don't believe that they are fully anaerobic. I just don't, because I think I would say more low oxygen. I think anaerobic sounds cooler, right? People love that more, but I don't know if that's true. So you can see here, it's a little bit color-wise. You can see the coffee looks different, right? This has more of that natural processing kind of coloration, where it's to a lesser degree on this one, right? So that's kind of interesting. I thought those would be interesting to try. And then, oh, look at this one. What is this? Look at this. I don't even know what this is. I don't remember what I ordered. So what you do is I can ask for samples from the company, and they'll send me samples of the different coffees that are available that I may be interested in. And then I'll use this and evaluate and decide which ones are we interested really in buying. And so I'll use Genuine Origin a lot for some of the blenders that we're using, right? So like, for example, let's say the espresso. The espresso right now is a coffee from Santa Ana in El Salvador. That's a coffee that I do get from, or I have been getting recently from Genuine Origin. Really nice chocolatey notes, good body. And then I'm blending that with a natural processed coffee that I get from a farmer that I'm working with in Comayagua, Honduras. So again, that has a nice, like really brilliant fruity characteristics to it. And completely, so that right now it's a blend of those two coffees, but it changes throughout the year depending on what's available, what we have in inventory, and those kind of things. But this one, let's look at this. We talked before, I believe, and without having looked at the labeling and forgetting exactly what I ordered, I think this could be a decaf, right? Because look at the coloration, right? Like this is what decafs typically look like. Brown, busted. Let's see. Is it? Oh no, it's not. Oh, it is. It is. So this is from Colombia, La Aurora, 72-hour anaerobic fermentation, a natural ethyl acetate decaf. Right. So using ethyl acetate as a decaffeination method, and the ethyl acetate is what people call the sugarcane processing. Right. So what they do is they take the coffee, and this is why it looks like this. Like coffee really looks like this. Well, no, maybe not like that, but like this one. This is probably close. I think I only got. Oh, that's not good. Here we go. This one. This is a washed coffee. See the greenness? It's got nice green, almost like a jade color. Like when you're talking about washed coffees, this is classic preparation, right? Now, take this coffee and you put on the decaffeination process, and this is what it looks like after decaffeination. And why is this, right? The reason it looks like this is because you're taking the coffee, this beautiful green coffee. In this case, it didn't start out at this beautiful green coffee because this is a anaerobic natural. So there's different things happening there. But you take the coffee and then you put it into hot water, which then extracts the flavor and the caffeine out of the coffee itself, right? So you've heated this bean up in water, like you're steaming it, and you're extracting both of those elements out of the bean. You then take that heavy water that's laden with the flavor of the coffee as well as the caffeine, and you mix it with the ethyl acetate, which is and the reason they call it sugarcane decaf is because the ethyl acetate is derived from sugarcane. It's still a chemical process, right? It's not like they say sugarcane because it sounds nicer, right? But the ethyl acetate strips out somehow the caffeine. And then now you have this water that just has the flavor of the coffee. You take that water, you pump it back onto the coffee, and then you dry it out so that the coffee absorbs the flavor back. And by doing so, you've really damaged the coffee tremendously. So this is what decaf really looks like. Green. This is part of the reason why decaf, yeah, exactly, Peter. It looks roasted. This is exactly why it's actually more difficult to roast the green, to roast green decaf, because it looks almost roasted. So it's decaf roasting is actually kind of difficult. But what I was interested in most about this, right? This is at a 72-hour anaerobic fermentation natural process, which I was like, this is very interesting to me. Like, because here's the thing, when you're processing decaf, it's a very intensive process, and you must, and really to make it work financially, it has to be done at scale. Typically, if you go to like Swiss Water or something, they would prefer you to do a batch of a container load, 40,000 pounds of coffee. Now you may think 40,000 pounds of coffee in the worldwide scale of like coffee, 40,000 pounds of decaf is not that much, but for someone to invest that much money, it can be, that's a significant amount, especially for smaller producers. And I would say even the producers that I work with mostly, the ones that are bigger and fairly doing very well in their own countries, a container load of coffee is a significant amount to put into decaf production or decaf processing and then perhaps not sell it or have to sell it at a loss. So it is significant that these guys have done this. And I was interested because it's anaerobic fermentation. Here's the thing about decaf that's kind of different. My thinking is different than a lot of people in coffee, is that the general perception of decaf is that, it's rubbish. We don't need to care. These people that are drinking decaf are missing the point, right? The caffeine's the reason. And in America, coffee really is a caffeine delivery system, which I get. I mean, I make a living off of that, so I can't, poo-poo on that. But the idea is that, but the question is, why do these people drink decaf? If truly the goal is for caffeination, and these people are drinking decaf coffee, then what is the point, right? The point is that these are people that are drinking coffee because they like the taste of coffee. And I've always kind of had the feeling, and this is something that was expressed to me many, many years ago. It's like, somebody told me along the way, they were like, you want to have good decaf. And I was like, why? He's like, because these are the people that like the taste of coffee. They are the true drinkers of coffee because they're drinking it totally for pleasure, totally for the flavor. And so to see more coffees like this, like for a while, the Mirish family was decaffeinating some coffees that they produce, which I bought, loved it. And that's part of the problem, because people have this attitude about decaf, and it's only really America that drinks decaf. The industry overall isn't geared towards high quality decaf production. But to see this kind of thing, where it's this kind of unique processing, I was like, I have to get a sample to see what it's like. Maybe it's worth getting to, because maybe this is something we can offer the guest who wants something interesting, but for whatever reason doesn't want the caffeination. So I ordered this because I wanted to try to, I forgot about ordering it, but I definitely want to see how that works, see how it turns out, and perhaps we can, have a little bit wider offerings for our guests. Keone says the decaf sample I got with the last standard issue was surprisingly good. Oh, do you remember who it was and what the processing is? Okay, so let's look at here. Now we're going to go look at this green one. This is from Nicaragua, the La Bastilla Wash Geisha. Oh, this is a geisha. Geisha, SHGEP. So now we're moving into fancy coffees. Geisha. There it is, the geisha, and what everybody wants. This is the girl in high school that everybody's chasing after. This is the coffee equivalent to Michelle Barrett. And Keone, if you know her, I will be very, very shocked and embarrassed. Although I guess I wouldn't be surprised if you actually were. So there's geisha. We're going to try that. And then this one, let's see this one. This one here. Peter says, so decaf tastes better? Well, here, okay, so that's a great question. Does decaf taste better? Decaf, if you have the same coffee, like regular, processed, and decaffeinated, the decaf coffee between the two will be sweeter because the caffeine has been stripped out, so a percentage of the bitterness has been stripped out of it as well. All things being equal. Same roast profile, same everything. The reason decaf is never really that great is because everyone has the low attitude about it, right? So it's kind of like one of those things where coffee sucks. Like coffee does suck. You go to a lot of places, coffee's terrible. But coffee can be really great because people are taking the initiative and the interest in producing some nice coffees. So when people start to take an interest in producing nice decaf, you can get some nice results. Like the decaf that we buy is nowadays is very pleasant to drink. But we really buy it because, you know, people want it. There is a percentage of customers that want to have decaf. So we try to find a nice quality decaf. Lately, it's been a lot of sugarcane processing from Colombia. It has been Swiss water in the past, but the Swiss water process, I don't really find the flavors to be as vibrant. Actually, the ones that I really liked is the MC process coffees from Germany. There's a company in Germany that does MC processing, which is the one that everybody's done for many years using methylene chloride. And when I've compared coffees, and there's a lot of factors that could be involved, but I think that my impression is that the methylene chloride actually produces a better quality of decaf than the rest. And I think the ethyl acetate that's being used in Colombia is actually pretty good. Swiss water and mountain water from Mexico, I find to be about the same. There's a little bit of a dullness to my perception with the water processing. I think the chemical processing, you know, better living through chemistry is what we're all about, right? Peter says, how do you know you're getting genuine geisha? Well, that's a good question. This geisha, I don't remember what the cost is. Does the invoice say the cost? No, that's just a packing slip. Okay, so the I don't know what the cost is, but this particular geisha is not. It's not the crazy geisha that you see for hundreds of dollars a pound. This is very modest. I think it's under $20 a pound, probably under $15 a pound. And as the more production of geisha happens in the world, as more people chase that geisha price, and more people bring geisha fields online, the greater the quantity, the more it's going to fall. But how do you know? Like, I mean, in some respects, you don't. If you're buying like this, you don't necessarily know for sure. The whole thing about coffee buying, and I think this is probably commerce and trade in general, is you have to work with suppliers that you feel are legitimate and ethical and truthful about what they're doing. I don't really have any question that Genuine Origin is trying to pull the wool over our eyes. You know, they're too big a company and they've got still far reach. Genuine Origin is actually owned by a large international conglomerate called Volcafe, which has offices all around the world in the coffee region. So they're working with a lot of farmers. They've got really great people. I don't think that they would. It would be unlikely that they are, you know, lying about something like this just to get a higher dollar. It's possible, but it's one of those things where, you know, hopefully you have a good relationship and hopefully you're working with people that are ethical. That's part of the whole thing. How do we be ethical in business, right? And, you know, you can even have that with your producers, right? You could have a situation where you contracted with a producer that you've worked with for many years, right? Or maybe you haven't worked with them at all, and your first time and maybe that's the more precarious one, is that they can send you on the pallet or the container whatever they have, and how would you necessarily know? You just have to check, and then you have to build trust. And you know, with these guys, I do have trust that their labeling is not deceitful in that respect. And then Anton says, if you tasted it once, you know if it's geisha. And Peter says, I order green beans. I can't tell if I'm getting the real stuff. So it's really a matter of, you know, gosh, how would you know that? Like, in my case, what we'll do is we will typically, let's take it back to not this level of buying, right? This level of buying, the Volcafe has representatives in each country that are working with their groups of farmers to do cultivation. They're helping them with cultivation. They're helping them with processing, as far as like not necessarily doing it for them, but maybe, you know, offering guidance or offering suggestions into what they want for their client base, right? So Volcafe is serving a large client base, and then Genuine Origin is serving a client base here in the United States. And so they know the preferences of a lot of their clients. So they're going to feed that back to their representatives in country, say, hey, we need more of this style of coffee. We need some interesting decafs. So the next year they work with the farmers to make those things and bring those to America. Now, in this case, I will go to a country, visit the farms, taste some of the coffees, maybe make a decision on the buying, depending on how deep we get. And then when the coffees are ready to be shipped, they send us a sample. We cup that again, and we keep notes, we keep the samples themselves, and then the coffee arrives, and then they'll typically send you a sample. The bigger you are, the more you do this, right? They send you another sample of what we call arrival. So there's a pre-departure sample, arrival sample, and then you get the arrival sample, and as long as it's in line with what you're expecting, you accept it. So that's kind of how you check it. Now, those guys, Genuine Origin, have done all that pre-arrival stuff or the arrival stuff. Now, in this particular case, when you're working with an importer, the importer has already bought the coffee, has already brought it to the United States or to wherever you are, warehoused it, and now you're just tasting it to see, is this the coffee that I want to offer? So it's fairly simple. Then hopefully you're working with reputable. It's all about working from reputable people, but it is one of those things. You do bring a good point. Like if you're working with new suppliers, you do have to kind of be a little bit skeptical. And the thing is, like, and I guess the only way to really determine that is taste, experience, meaning your experience and your tasting of that product, right? You get the coffee in, like you order a coffee, and in your case, I know you're probably ordering maybe this much coffee or maybe a pound of coffee, and that's your actual purchase. You haven't done a sampling of it. So your sampling is the purchase. I would say, you buy a little bit and you try it. Does it live up to what they say it's going to be? Or are there, not that this has tasting notes on it, but let's say on their whatever packaging or website, they're going to say, this is what it tastes like. Does it live up to that? Is that the experience that you have? If yes, then chances are they're at least being somewhat reputable. And then again, it just becomes a question of time. The more you work with someone, the more you get to know them, the more you figure out, do you trust them? Do you like them? Do you want to work with them more? It's just like any relationship, really. It's just like, you meet some people in the world and you're like, that guy's sketchy. I don't really want to talk to him. Or you meet somebody in the world and they're like, that guy's kind of a jerk off. I don't really like him. Like I can think of one person in coffee where he was kind of an arrogant, kind of a dick, right? And I kind of wasn't really, I kind of didn't vibe with him too well. But over the years that I've known him, we've been friends. He's still kind of a dick, but he's been consistently that, right? Like that's how he presents. He's very honest about it. He's a nice guy enough, but he can be a dick, but he presents consistently. And you can rely upon that and you can come to trust that, which I prefer. Versus some other people that I know, like one person I think of, he presents himself very well, like likable. But as you get to know him, you realize that this guy's just a snake. He's just a snake, just out for his own personal glory. Which I'd rather you be for your own personal glory and be upfront about it than try to present yourself as some kind of benevolent expert. Right? Anyway, that's how I think that you would work through figuring out who you like. And it's just same thing, like even for me with, let's say, Genuine Origin. You try it out. Do they deliver in what they say? Can I trust in what they're saying? And then moving forward, right? Keone says he was a couture from Finca Los Nogales, Colombia, managed by Oscar Anibal and Angie Hernandez and roasted by Ditta Artigianale in Florence. Oh, those guys are very good. Yeah, that should be great. Francesco is very, very sharp guy. Francesco Sanapo, the owner of Ditta, very, very good guy. Peter says, I might get to taste a fake geisha. I think that if if you're, I guess it just goes back to who you're buying from, right? I think if people find out that people are selling like coffee under the wire, they're not going to be there. People, that reputation will get it. Like, for example, there was a company in Kona back in the 90s. Actually, do I have it nearby? I think, oh yeah, here it is. So somewhere along the way, I found this at like a Will or whatever it was. And I couldn't believe that I found this. So I had to buy it. I totally had to buy it. And it's really for those that are in the know. So back in the 1990s in Kona, there was this huge scandal. There was actually one that was similar to this just recently. But this guy came to Kona, started his own Kona company, selling 100% Kona and shipping it around the world. You could look at this on the internet. It's kind of, I think it's kind of funny in a sad way. But what he was doing, he was bringing Colombian coffee in, or some benign coffee, like let's say the Brazil Bourbon Fancy Santos or something like that, roasting it, and packaging and selling it as 100% Kona. And that was a company called Kona Kai. Kona Kai Farms Coffee. Somewhere along the way, I found this at some kind of store. They took the bag from Kona Kai, and I'm almost positive they have no idea. Whoever made this had no idea the reputation of this company. But what they did is they put this applique on the stencil of the bag, and I thought it was cool. Like, it's cool, like how they did it was really nice. But I was like, oh my, this is like a piece of coffee history that is, if you're in the know, like you would totally know and be like, what are you doing with that? But yeah, so in Calpico, like this one, Kona #1. So the highest grade, it's being sold as the highest grade, 100 pounds. And so yeah, on the subject of reputability, it's reputability. It's whether or not they're reputable or not. I think that's the only way. That's the only way to know for sure, is by checking. And hopefully you don't have to check. You check the first few times, and then hopefully you don't have to, like, that's a part of the calculus you don't have to worry about after a certain point. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. Here is, oh, this is a Brazil, Salmo Plus Natural 2-3. This is screen 16 plus. I'm not sure what SSFC means anymore. So this is a Brazilian coffee. This is a Brazilian natural. That was just, I saw in their catalog and I was like, let me see about, oh, one moment. My mom is calling. All right, that was my mom calling to check in. Always nice to hear from mom. Okay, so we've got this coffee, this Salmo Plus Natural. I'm interested to try some naturals. A lot of these Brazilian ones are just kind of like simple, easy coffees, perhaps a little bit on the lower end of the price point scale, right? But I'm looking to see, are there some naturals that could be nice? And I like naturals. Let's see if this has any kind of natural flavor. Yeah, decent smelling. I'm always on the lookout for heavy blueberry naturals. I love blueberry naturals. When I first got into business, that was like my desire, was blueberry naturals. Peter says, I might ingest some coffee cherries and market my own. Oh, that would be quite an interesting process. Maku says, totally agree. All right. For the processing of your own coffee. And Peter also collects coffee bags. You know, Peter, if you ever come to America, let me know. We typically have bags of empty used coffee bags. Sometimes actually it's very difficult to get rid of the used coffee bags. You can just throw them away, but I always feel bad about throwing stuff away like that. So here it is, the last coffee of our selection here. Looking by the color, I think it's a natural. I think it's got that kind of like, where's the coffee? Here, this is the washed, right? So you can kind of see there's some kind of processing happening here from the washed, right? Very like green, less green. Yep, natural process. This is from Ethiopia. The organic Guji Buku Sayisa G1 Natural. Guji. This is the Guji. If you heard of Guji, I don't know if this is the same one that you probably heard of, but let's see about the aroma. Oh, that's a little bit more heading towards the direction that I like. A little bit more fruit. That should be kind of nice. My problem is that when I started out, is I was always a big natural guy. I know some people are not really into naturals. And that's one thing you have to learn, is that when you start to buy coffee and select coffees, you have to buy not what you like, but also what your guests will like. Because if I just let myself go, I'd probably have a whole catalog, mostly of natural coffees. And then people would be like, what's wrong with you? Why do you have only naturals? Peter says, sell them bags on eBay. Oh, good idea. I just got to take the time to do that I got a lot of stuff I should sell. I need to work on that more. All right, well, here it is, Calpico. So now it's finally totally pretty much blended together. Refreshing. Gosh, that Calpico is nice. Now, after you let it sit for the half an hour, 45 minutes, we've been chatting away here. Look, you got these coagulants. Not very pretty. That's not appetizing at all. It's like I'm drinking from a bacteria and petri dish. All right, well, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in and hanging out with me today, this morning, or this evening, wherever you are in the world. We still got rain here in Baltimore. Who knows when this rain's ever going to stop? It's Wednesday. We've had rain pretty much nonstop for the last week and a half or so. We did have one day it was sunny. Saturday was sunny, but the rest of it is all like rain and cloudy and gray and depressing and just terrible. Well, not as terrible as other parts of the country that the hurricane hit directly. So very thankful for that. But back again tomorrow with more coffee Q&A. So if you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, ideas for future videos, let me know. We'll work them into the schedule. So hope you have a wonderful day or wonderful evening, and see you next time. Thanks, Mom.